Hey there, welcome to episode ninth for Rambling Weekly. For this episode, we're going to be talking about subjectivity and how that kind of flows in with games and stuff like that. We'll also probably get into a bit of other different forms of media and whatnot. So, yeah, let's get to it. Phew, okay, for this episode, all the music is going to be coming from somebody who I'd mentioned before, Dojinshi, a Dojin artist named, kind of going by like cutting or like slicing your own throat. His website's called Human hyphen barbecue, so be what that be. um, he's this guy's music is probably the in the realm of doujinshi stuff, like music. I'm not really into the comic manga side of it. It's just never really something I got into. But humana. But I after listening to a lot of SSH's stuff, he had a bunch of links for other people, and that's kind of how I got to know more music, more just different kind of music and that sort of thing. And yeah, so through that was like the second person I clicked on. I was like, first person I probably the first one I clicked on. I was like, yeah, because there's a few other people like Mint Jam. Some people may know. Mint Jam does not allow you to download their music. But Mint Jam aside, pretty awesome stuff. I actually have one song, which is Ryokan. It's a pretty awesome song. But that aside, Human Barbecue is he'll be referred to for right now, because I think he's changed his thing again. So still the same website. If you want to look at it, check it down below. But it's a bit harder in its rock at times, I think, than SSH, but they're still in the same vein. And that song, of course, didn't reflect that. But it's just I want to say that some of the music is from, particularly that song. I want to say some of it's from a series of hentai games called Rants. I've never played them. I've heard that they actually have pretty darn good characters, other than the dude's fucking walking hard on. I've heard that they actually have good characters. Okay, whatever. I just like the music. The music's phenomenal. Or at least the music I've heard from from like doujinshi artists. I've got, and I don't know if it's from him or somebody else. I've got an actual CD of an album of like 10 songs, all of them from. It might actually be from him. It's like called like Ontology or something like that, but it's some pretty sweet music. Like, yeah. That aside, the excuse me. Think. I don't know. I just had a not like I want to throw up or anything, but I need to take a drink of something. Good. Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, that song there was called Inukai is what we're going with. And so there'll be different songs of Mr. Human Babaku throughout this this episode. Yeah, the end. Thanks for listening. But, uh, oh goodness. But let's see, what has gone on this week? I don't know. Like, it's been kind of like one of those blur sort of things. You start doing something, and then it just kind of whoosh. I will say that I've been playing a bit of the Uncharted series. I had heard from a few other people that I enjoyed it, or it's got this kind of mythology thing going with it, where it talks about one of them talks about Shangri-La, we'll say, and that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, I hate the series. I cannot stand these games. I'm near the end of the second one, and I think this is a good thing that I really despise these games, because there's a lot of people who really like them, which is fine. That goes into the topic about subjectivity and all that lovable, huggable, hunky-dory stuff. But me and Uncharted do not mix. Part of the problem is, I think that it kind of pushes itself to be a little bit more natural, or it looks like, hey, this is a real thing that's going on here. And so in doing that, my brain has at least been exercised with disbelief when it comes to the whole using guns, shooting, bang bang kind of thing. So that isn't as much of a problem, sort of. But the thing that actually really irks the hell out of me is how insane the platforming is, and just how the jumping and catching people and with one arm and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just it breaks my brain. It really breaks my brain, and I really do not like the series at all. So, yeah. Other than that, what has been going on? I kind of took like a break, and when I took this break, I just kind of played a bit of that, but I'm also playing Dragon Quest VI. I'm trying to I don't say not replay it, but like try to see it from a different kind of perspective. I don't like Dragon Quest VI very much, and it's kind of surprising that Enix decided back in the day when they did Dragon Quest V to not even bother trying to translate it and then push it overseas, but just be like, whatever, we're just going to go straight into 6. I don't see it. I don't know what the... I'm about 8-9 hours in or so, and I am still just, like, it's just, I got Rosmere, basically. That's where I'm at right now. And I'm just, I don't know. I really don't understand why they would have done that, and just how it's just a big stumbling block. Dragon Quest games are pretty good about themselves. Like 2 is kind of that same way a little bit to me, but 6, sweet merci. That's but that I don't think there's anything else going on. I'm writing. Doing that sort of thing. I'm almost done with the I think chapter 12 I'm on right now, so I'm almost done with that. I'm actually kind of happy in that regard, because, and this might sound really weird, but I wrote out, not all of it, but I wrote out, let's say the last scene that I've written, I wrote that out and everything, and I was thinking on, just kind of mentally, should I do this, should I do that, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden I thought, man, I really fucked this chapter up. And so with the edits, because I'm kind of doing a soft edit, or like a first kind of rough edit, when I type it out, I've completely changed it. Because it needed to have, because if I kept it the way I written it, I just kind of hit a wall, and I'm like, Oh, dude, that's kind of where I was. I was just like, So, yeah, it's kind of nice because to be able to pivot and do that, I don't want to say I dreaded, but, and this kind of happened when I was writing for Sage's Calling as well, is that I would have these large things of writing, and there would be no problems in the sense of, other than like needing to add more details here and there and kind of tweak things here and there, but like the overall gist of it just was kind of flowing naturally for me. And then to finally have a point where I was like, yeah, we need to not do that. We need to kind of go another route. It's kind of nice because probably because I'm like, I know I'm not perfect. I need some more clarification of this is really dumb. Or this is not so good, or this is just a bad idea. And thankfully I was able to realize that myself and then go from there. So yeah, that's what we're gonna go with for this little opening part. We're going to listen to some more music, and then we'll get into the discussion. So should be fun, subjectively of course. Not objectively, but subjectively. So alright, let's listen to that music. Woo! Alright, that song there was Majin, and it was great. That's kind of more of the style of music that I know him for. He also did a really, really cool arrangement of Shadow's theme eons ago. Unfortunately, he updated it with a different arrangement, which I wasn't as big of a fan of, and then eventually I think it's just kind of gone. It's gone. There may be a way to find it, but man, that was a freaking awesome song. But yeah, so the topic for today, and I admit I had to redo this. This is like the third time I'm redoing it because I went way off kilter for like 40 fucking minutes of just blah, la, 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 blah, la, la. And it was just like, wow, where am I even going with this? So we're going to try to focus this, but the discussion is about subjectivity and all that sort of stuff, because I think it's kind of important. Because if I, for example, say I don't like the Tales of series, I really don't. I like Fantasia, and I've played Vesperia, and I thought it was okay, and that's it. All the other ones that I've tried, which, mind you, isn't a lot. Tales of Graces F. I thought that was boring. I thought that was real boring. I couldn't even get past like the beginning childhood bits of it. I was just like, this is not for me. I'm not liking this whatsoever. Tales of the Abyss, all that sort of stuff. I'm not a big fan of them. They really don't. Tales of Xillia, no. The only thing I liked about it was the final dungeon, because that series is so notorious to me of being a pain in the ass when it comes to its final dungeons. I think I put a hole in the wall when it came to Destiny, the PS2 remake of it, because the dungeon's like 6 fucking hours long, and then you've got the just thinking about it just irks me. But I really don't like the Tales of series. It does not work for me. However, I will say, if you are a fan of it and like discussions about it, the Return to Mother Base did a really good video on talking about the themes and why he came to really appreciate Tales of the Abyss. I'm not going to really like spoil it or go long into it, because that's kind of what I did before in a bad recording of trying to get through this. Not to say this video is bad or anything like that. I just went way off kilter. But the themes really stuck to him, and those themes don't stick to me at all. Like it just does not at all. Like, just because of the type of people that we are, which is fine, and that's fine. But the thing is that me saying I don't like the Tales of series, outside of a couple games that are okay, I'm going to get a lot of flack for that. I'm going to get a lot of flack from people who are fans of those games, because for some reason, because I don't like something, or because someone doesn't like something that somebody else really likes, that means that they are at odds for some reason. I really don't get it. And this kind of came up at one point in a similar kind of way with that Senran Kagura game. Dan, Nostalgic Dan. I think that's his handle. His name is Dan. He put up a thing, a picture. He put up a picture about getting I think the collector's edition of the newest one that just came out. And I, tongue-in-cheek comment, I was like, enjoy your booby game. I have no interest in playing these games. I'm not a fan of the Warriors type of style game. I don't have really any interest in them. It was just a tongue-in-cheek comment, and we kind of had a I don't want to say back and forth in a negative way, but, a little bit of a discussion about it. And he's like, well, I like the aesthetics, but I also like that style of play, which is fine. That's totally fine. If you think that's fun, if that's fun to you, go ahead. However, it kind of devolved, and I may have brought this up in a previous episode, but it devolved a bit into trying to belittle me because I was making a tongue-in-cheek comment about the booby game. If you want to enjoy whatever, but Holly Dog in my lens had come out and was like, it's more than just that. It's possible, while you're sitting there doing whatever, me and the few other people that were in that conversation, Kane, I can't remember what his handle is, but him, Dan, and I want to say Games of War. They we're gonna enjoy possibly the game of the year and that sort of thing. But the thing is that I have no interest in that kind of game. I have no interest in the warrior style of game. I have no interest in the aesthetics of the game. Nothing. Not the music. Nothing really interests me. So it's not going to be my game of the year. So I like that, and this is. I'm not saying the game's bad because I have no interest in it. I'm just saying I have no interest in it. I was just making a comment because that's what you see aesthetically is that kind of thing. Is there more to it than that? Holly made the argument that it had a lot of very endearing humor, which is another thing. Humor is a very subjective thing. Not everybody's going to find the same thing funny. That, for example, people say the rape jokes are very tasteless. I laugh at that. Does that make me a horrible person? Do I want to do those horrible things? Absolutely not. But it is. I'm a bit more on the black humor kind of side of things. Like that's just. It's a coping mechanism, but it's also just a way to kind of take that terrifying aspect and kind of cut it down a bit. That's how I perceive it. But it's just like that sort of thing. Like so when I say I don't like a game like that, or if somebody says they don't like a game like that, then you get into you get some people who really are testy about that sort of thing. If you come to me and tell me you don't like the Trails series, if you don't like Trails in the Sky, or you don't like Ao no Kiseki or Zero no Kiseki, or you love Sen no Kiseki, Trails of Cold Steel, okay, whatever, that's fine. We can talk about what you liked and what I disliked about it, or vice versa. But to try to push either a way of saying that because I liked it, it is greater than what, or you don't understand, like that to me irritates the fuck out of me. I detest that sort of thing. Like, you just don't understand. You don't get it. And it's like, really? How about we as people as a whole understand and respect other people's boundaries and what they like and dislike? That's more important than anything. Like if somebody's telling me that if for example, with the Tales of Grace's F or Tales of the Abyss, both games I only played very little of. I think Tales of the Abyss I played maybe like 5 to 6 hours of. I fucking cannot stand that game. I hate that game. It is boring. It is just not my kind of thing. But then you get people who are like, well, you got to get to the point of which it all changes, and then the curve, the plot twist, and how it affects them is really, really, it really adds depth to it and stuff like that. That's fine. Okay, whatever. because you got to that, you like that, that's fine. But to me, the game's too boring to get to that damn point. And I shouldn't have to suffer to get to something that's going to be super amazing. That's not how fun works. You don't, how, like, self-conflagrating is that to be like, I've got to beat myself up to then really enjoy it. Like, there's things with being challenging when it comes to, say, like Mega Man and stuff. Like the challenge is more of getting beat up to then beat the hell out of it. That's a bit of a, like your montage of training to take care of the Cobra Khan. Wait, Cobra Khan. Cobra Khan. Whatever the hell the thing is from I'm so bad at quoting like movie stuff, but the fucking can't even think of the title of the movie. Karate Kid. There you go. Cobra Kai, Do or Die. There we go. That's what it was. Then training and then beating them, sort of thing. That's kind of how Mega Man is. That's kind of how that works, and it's fun that way. But to just kind of force myself to go through X amount of boredom to possibly, it's not a clear-cut definitive yes, because, and this is the thing with Return to Mother Base's Alex video, is that for him, and I think I mentioned this, and if I'm not, things are starting to blur together in that regard. But to him, there was the themes, but the themes only work because of who he is as a person. The themes don't jive with me. And listening to him, they would never jive with me. They wouldn't interest me because they don't pertain to me. They really don't. I am such and it's not about being like cocksured, but I'm certain of who I am as a person, that if I was to find out I was adopted or something, or that whatever, it doesn't affect me. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Partly because the past is what the past is, and I am who I am now. I don't know, but the thing with that is, it's saying, and I swear I've probably said this before, but it sounds really greedy. It sounds really obnoxious to push and say, well, I enjoyed this, so you must enjoy this too because we know each other, or we're friends, or that sort of thing. And that's ridiculous. That's insane. Like, if you don't like something that I love, all right, cool, that's great. That reaffirms something in my head that you are your own person and you have your own likes and dislikes. This is what, and not to say that this person's a bad person, and it's nobody that you guys know. So, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but there have been people, and the one that comes to mind, but there have been people that have been in my clique of friends, and this person will only like whatever everybody else likes to kind of just fit in. At least it felt that way. And so it gets, to me, it gets really bothersome because it feels like they don't ever express their true self. They're kind of just like, oh, yeah, well, I like that too. Or, oh, yeah, I don't like that either. And it's, okay, you're not rocking the boat, but it's kind of like, be your own self. And I respect, and for lack of a better word, love, because I think love needs to be kind of broken down to not mean solely like sexual kind of thing, because that's with the English language, the kind of look at things like Latin like had like 6 or 7, like a bunch of different words for the like love, I love and respect people enough that if they have a differing opinion, okay, cool, great, that's wonderful, that's fine, that's good. We can take these differing opinions, and then particularly if they are based in subjective fields, like your feels, I guess I should say, the opinions and feelings and stuff like that, that's fine. It's because it's work, it's art. you're going to have differences in opinion, and that's fine because you're a different human being. So there are things. Sure, we agree on like Mega Man being awesome, or we can not agree on Mega Man or being awesome. Some people don't even like Mega Man. Okay, that's fine. You're wrong. Jokes aside, but I mean that's fine. You're allowed not to like things. Or like things. But when you get people who either try to push it of, well, if you some people that I know seem to want to try to push it further and be like, well, why don't you like those things? And sometimes it is a innate feeling. Sometimes it is simply a bias of I didn't find it interesting. I don't find this sort of thing fun. I mean, that's the thing with Tales of the Abyss in particular, is that playing the game for the very first time, I was able to deduce a lot of that stuff within the first 4 hours that we were playing it. Because somebody else who had played it through, when I had made mentions of different things of speculation, they're like, have you played this before? Because you were pretty spot on with that. I'm like, no, I hadn't. Well, good job at making the proper guesses on that. Like, that in itself, it doesn't kill my interest in it, but it does make it a bit harder for me to really kind of play it if I'm just like, because I usually don't do that. I don't actively try to think of ways of how something is going to go. I usually just turn that thought process off, unless it's like a detective story. I like to kind of surmise what's going on with a detective story. But usually when I'm playing a game or something, I'll just kind of shut the whole what's going to happen kind of part of my brain off, sort of questioning that sort of thing, and then I just kind of let it go, and it works out for me. So, because a lot of times you're like, you could probably guess generally the endings and then kind of work your way back. But with Tales of the Abyss, I was just already like, okay, yeah. And usually that happens when I'm not interested in it, when it's boring me. So I have to find ways for it to become interesting, and then it becomes the guessing game and that sort of thing. But it's all about like subjectivity. And this was a huge thing about that in particular. But it seems to be a big sticking point, because with a lot of people, when you say, hey, I don't like this, people come back with, well, you just don't understand, or you need to play more of it to get a greater understanding of it. And it's like, no, I don't like it. Maybe I'll come back to it and give it another shot, but right now I don't like it. Tales of the Abyss, I have no interest in going back to it. Tales of Vesperia, the very first time I played through it, I was falling asleep playing the fucking game with somebody else, just crashing, because I found it boring. I played it again, and I got through it, and it's like, it's not so bad. It's not terrible, but it's not my favorite. But to try to say that, well, I have a better understanding of it, so I can appreciate it more, and I know better because you don't. That's not what this is trying. Like, this is why I'm trying to shift personally from saying that it's a bad game or anything, because I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying it's not fun to me. And I think that's the disconnect that we have as people when we're kind of talking about games or shows or music, is that instead of saying it's bad, we probably should be shifting it towards saying, I didn't enjoy it as much, or, I didn't find it as fun, or I didn't think it was as interesting. And then when people try to come back with that, it is a lack of awareness of what is somebody else's opinions, thoughts, and just the context from which they're playing it. That when they try to make that argument, and it's like, you cannot say solely because playing it more you have a greater I do want to go with that. You cannot say to somebody that they have a greater knowledge of the game so they can appreciate it more, when your argument isn't even about that. It's just that it doesn't jive with you. If it doesn't jive with you, that's a fundamental problem between the player and the game. or I shouldn't say problem, but disconnect. It's a fundamental disconnect. And in being that way, it's not saying that well, the game's terrible, or, well, you're an idiot because you haven't played enough of it. It's just not jiving. You're not resonating with one another. That happens because people are different. So, yeah. I do want to get into a bit of an article here. That was something that TV and Lust, Craig, he had shared on Twitter a few days ago. And by the time you're listening to this, it'll be a week and a few days ago. But from what I can tell, I want to say that he agreed with the article as a whole. How much, I'm not certain, but at least maybe I'm totally off on this, and if Craig does end up listening to this or gets pointed in the direction of it, hi Craig. But it seemed like he was much more in agreement, and the way in the games that he likes seems to point to this a bit more. But I could be totally off. I could be massively wrong in assumption there. So, yeah, that's not the important thing. If he agrees with it, that's fine. That's because people are people. People are going to be different. So, as long as it's not condoning something hateful just because it's fucking hateful, I think we can all be pretty cool and calm and even with people. But this article, and I will share it down below, is from Eurogamer.net, and it was written by Keith Stewart, and it was published on April 23rd, 2016, or the 23rd of April 2016. And I read through it, and I sent this to a few other people because I like to pick other people's brains. And so now I'm bringing it up as well because I would like to get your guys' thoughts on this, because it's picking other people's brains. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of read some of it here and there, just to kind of talk about it a bit, so it's not like I'm really poorly not translating, but truncating everything to what this person's saying. But so the title of this is, "Why is video game lore so awful?" So first off, it has my attention because I'm kind of in the camp that writing for video games is not very good as a whole. It's really not. At least to me. It is not enjoyable to me. I find it very subpar. That's them apples. I don't even know what the fuck that's even supposed to mean. But I find it very subpar. It's not very engaging to me most of the time. But in the same hand, I do realize that as a whole, games are not really geared towards me. Usually, particularly JRPGs, a lot of them are geared towards more younger audience with its stories and stuff like that. It feels like, at least it does to me. But so he starts off in the very first paragraph. He kind of, shots fired sort of thing. He puts, let's see here. Listening to the creative director of a role-playing game talking about their forthcoming release. And very often they will say something like, "There is such a rich story behind our game. There is a lot of lore for our players to discover if they want to go deep." And I have to admit, I inwardly groan. So right there, as I poke myself in the eye, right there, you have somebody who is, to me that's very condescending sounding. That's very, I don't know, that's what it sounds like to me. That, to me, sounds very condescending, to be, here's somebody saying something, and then this person's like, ugh. And in the same hand, it's very reflective of this person's opinions of writing for a game, or their presentation for a game. They find it not to be very good. Okay, but in the same hand, the way that that's said it comes off very condescending. Yeah, yay! Like I can say something's subpar writing, but it just doesn't jive with me. Why do I think it's subpar writing? I find books much more engaging, and when it comes to the writing, and a lot of times, particularly how the genre of like JRPGs and stuff have gone, they've they've devolved into being very trope heavy, and to me, tropes it just doesn't work. Here, it's really hard to make interesting trope characters. To me, it's just kind of like but and so he straight up says that he finds video game lore can be, well, just awful. All right, well, okay, so he's going to explain this, and this is where he starts losing me right away. First, he says here, the problem is video game creators are prone to making too erroneous assumptions about what constitutes a deep narrative. And to me, this kind of reinforces that whole condescension, that very, for lack of a better word, holier than thou. Like, I can say something subpar, but I'm not gonna say, well, I know why it's subpar. Like, to me, it's just things that I don't like, and I don't like it because it just isn't engaging enough to me. Generally, I mean, that's okay. That's really bad. It's a bunch of innate kind of stuff at that point, but that sounds really like condescending to me. Is that I know the two errors that they're making about deep narrative, but the problem is deep narrative is a rather subjective thing of like what constitutes deep. Are you talking the exploration of a person's psyche, that sort of thing, or what? And he says, and continues on with, the first is that volume equals depth. And let's see here. And then, like, in the classic tradition of epic science fiction and fantasy literature, studios will craft thousands of pages of backstory, often involving many hundreds of characters in vast intergalactic wars. And he said, sometimes it seems as though early in a narrative meeting, one writer will say to another, okay, let's set this in the middle of a war that's been running for 100 years. Then their colleague replies, no, wait, how about 1,000 years? And then everyone agrees this is exponentially deeper. It's just an extra knot on the end of a conflict that, without context, pathos, or human tragedy, is ultimately meaningless. And I agree with that sort of thing, that just to look at Freedom Wars. Freedom Wars isn't a very good game. It's not bad. It's not atrocious, but it's kind of But they just randomly are like, yes, it takes place in the year 25,007 or 12 or whatever AD. And it's like, why? Why is it 20-some odd thousand years later? Why? It's just kind of like putting in numbers. I agree with that aspect of it, but in the same hand, that's like that argument, that is a really bad straw man for it. It's just like, well, they obviously, certainly you see that in games where they kind of push that, and you're like, that's kind of that's a really shallow way to do it. But okay, but that doesn't, that's not depth. That's just kind of tacking on years. That's not really a depth kind of thing. Unless they go into this great exposition about the thing, then it's not really a depth argument. That's just tacking on years. Like it could be 1,000-year conflict, and the weight of the story falls in, say, a summer or a season or a year. And it could be really, really, really detailed. And that could be really in-depth and stuff, and be pretty crazy in its depth. And it could be a really deep narrative. like there's it's such a weird argument to make that volume and is not like volume equals depth, and it's not, and I'm not saying it does, but I'm saying that if people like that sort of thing, if they like having all of those nooks and crannies painted and detailed, then it is going to be depth to them. Like me personally, I like having gaps in knowledge. Like, not saying that it should be completely just woo, there's nothing there, but for me, like I personally like Godfather Part 2 more than Part 1. One's a really great movie, but you don't, when you watch it, you're not thinking, oh, what happened in the past, really, too much to be like, he's the head of a mafia. You get the idea. He's got other people going after him. He's not in the greatest of strength moments and stuff, and that's why people are kind of trying to go after him. I get that. But you're kind of not really thinking about it. And then with Part 2, you have this duality of showing like the past and how the character kind of came to be, and you're like, oh, that's really, really cool. And so, at least to me, it was. But like it. But yeah. So okay. But yeah, like I agree. If you don't have any context, pathos, or human tragedy, it is just kind of a bunch of kerfluffle. But we'll kind of come back to that here in a little bit. And then he kind of continues on with, a lot of games indulge in a form of narrative carpet bombing in which story fragments are simply dropped onto the world from a great height in the hope that they make some sort of impact. Scrolls, emails, post-it notes, letters, all crammed with text and left for the player to discover it, quote-unquote, if they want to go deep into the lore. But so often this feels like stealth exposition, a way of filling in the backstory disguised as a reward for inquisitive players. And he goes on to say, while The Witcher is a wonderful game series, it seems like the Northern Kingdoms are more like a bookshop, and that if you wanted to read the novels, he would just read. He'd read the novels. I really don't understand this argument. If people like that sort of thing, and it's optional, what's the big deal? They're going and exploring that sort of thing. The Witcher's a bad example because it is plagiarized off of those damn books. Well, the books are even more so plagiarized off something else from what I recall. But there are books already in place. But if it's just a game and there's not really a book or story or anything that it's based off of, why is this a bad thing? I mean, that's such a bad example because it's a cherry-picked one to try to make their point, but there's plenty of games that don't have that sort of thing. A good example of why it's a bad idea would be in something like Final Fantasy 13, where it's like, here is the whole thing and stuff from before, and well, you need to read this before any of the shit's gonna make any sense. Bad way to do it. But no, they went with The Witcher, which is just not that's a poor example. But no, look at things like the Morrowind and Skyrim and all that sort of in but like the Elder Scrolls stuff, that's got tons of information in there, and it's going to be something he makes a point about here in just a moment. And this other thing is, the other problem is the belief that obfuscation equals depth. In the Final Fantasy and Metal Gear Solid franchises, for example, the timelines, relationships, and plot structures are so tortuously complex, so shielded within arcane terminology, that it's almost impossible to engage on an emotional, empathetic level. Yes, Kojima makes lots of super smart postmodern jokes and references throughout his games, but they are buried beneath narrative labyrinths that feel inaccessible, not because they're intellectually complex, but because they don't make a whole lot of sense. This doesn't feel like great storytelling. I actually kind of agree with this. I like Metal Gear Solid games, but it's generally not because of story stuff. It really isn't. I love Metal Gear Solid 3 because it feels like I'm playing a Bond game. Sort of. I mean, just because it's so heavily centered towards that whole, like, the Bond vibe and stuff like that. Metal Gear Solid 4 is kind of I liked Peace Walker a lot. I thought Peace Walker was fun. I did not like Metal Gear Solid 5 at all. I was very disappointed in how that kind of ended up being. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to play, but it's like, yeah, it's fun to dick around in, but then there's nothing there story-wise. Oh, thanks. But I agree with this. When you just kind of have really, really complex is one thing, but it's like really, really you get this with people who take like a Psych 101 class, or a Philosophy 101 class, and then they act like they know everything about everything, like, oh, I've read a Carl Jung book, I know everything about you, sort of thing. And it's like, no, that's no, you've just got a perspective by somebody who feels certain ways about people. I mean, if that was the case, people, and this is why history can never be like a hard science or a hard study. It's more of a soft thing because it's dealing with people. You cannot measure people with any sort of accuracy. Like, tell me, what are the measurements for fear? What's the measurements for joy? What's the measurements for anticipation? What's the measurements for, that sort of thing? It cannot be done. Look at the people at Carthage who had to sit with Roman ships at their harbor and and Roman soldiers at their door for like 2-3 years before they came in, and they did really bad things to them. Like, horrific things to them. But I mean, how do you measure that against say measuring against like another, what would be another the people of was it Roanoke that kind of had that, or say the early settlements of Europeans in the North Americas, where they came in and they were like eating themselves, they turned cannibalistic and stuff like that. It's an extreme. It's very extreme. It's just a very different type of extreme. We just can't express it. Look at like World War I and how they had to deal with that kind of horrific trench warfare, and you can't measure it. It can't be done. Not yet, at least. So, whew, okay. Okay, and so he goes on with but yeah, so like it's complex, but it's a lot of it's very confusing at times, and that isn't necessarily a good thing. And then he goes on with saying that he understands the theory behind lore placement. It's about allowing players to discover story content rather than having it shoved at them. It's about pull rather than push, to use the horrible language of UX methodology. BioShock is a wonderful example of this. Because you have the setting of Rapture, and you have the audio tapes. But here he says kind of the thing he goes, and this is what kind of gets me, is that he makes this thing about, and this is what I was just saying, is that he makes this point about The Witcher, and it's reading it, but the audio files are great, and that the audio files are fine. And that's where this kind of disconnect comes in for me, because as far as I can tell, BioShock, at least when it was first made, did not have a book. It was probably based off of some books there, but they didn't have a straight up book series that they were taking from or inspired by or whatever, where The Witcher did. And so, and not only did they have those two things, but one is an audio and the other is reading. It sounds like the author just doesn't want to read, which, okay, that's fine, but sometimes voice acting isn't as good as having somebody read something and letting them use their imagination, because sometimes voice acting sucks. And he brings this other point up. I actually think trust is a key issue here. The world of Elder Scrolls Skyrim is effectively a giant instruction manual, a great warehouse of bloated backstory where you can't walk for more than 5 minutes without being hit about the head with a 100-page lore nugget. Journey, meanwhile, conjures a mysterious, evocative world by providing the player with a few ruins and some ancient symbols. I cannot help but feel the latter game trusts and respects its players, while the former wants to scoop story into their flapping mouths. And this is ridiculous. This isn't. No, it's not about. Where does it? This then the words. I can't think of them. Why is it more respectable to just have? I respect you more because there's not a lot here. What? That doesn't make any sense. Like, not only that, but with things like Elder Scrolls, I'm assuming that the people that's geared towards want that kind of stuff. They want these sorts of things because to them, if you to them that is lazy, just to have a few ancient symbols and that's it. That to them that would probably be like, huh? Where's the complexity that is societal development? You know, that's not saying that they respect people more. That's bullshit. That's what that is. That is bullshit. And I understand that he says he's feeling that, so he's kind of inclined to thinking that, but that's a bunch of bullshit. It's not about respecting one person over another because, oh, we have this thing over here and you can read about it. You can ignore the whole damn thing, can't you? And if you don't want to do that, that in itself is, I mean, and then he continues with, a better, more respectful use of lore can be found in games that reward inquisitive players with stuff that plays no real part in the overriding narrative. A lot of people are really psyched to be valued in this way, including myself, says ex-journalist and now narrative designer Kara Ellison. For example, Love Fist and Vice City. Love Fist are a joke Scottish heavy metal band featured on the radio in that game. But I love them so much I look for signs of them in every single GTA title. In GTA 5, Willie from Love Fist turns up and that kind of thing is a joke that is 14 years old. That's a lot in game years. I don't quite understand what they're kind of going with that compared to partially because of the whole it's more respectful in this way. Aren't you going into different locales and stuff in the Elder Scrolls games? So why is it them talking about something that's important to these people? Why is that not respectful? But, or, you know, it's a digression, but why is it not respectful? But to have a fucking appearance by somebody in the game that's kind of consistent with one another with great travel, why is that more respectful? What? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if somebody can paint that into a better picture for me, because it really doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's cool that they did that. That's great. But in the same hand, it's not better because they did. And he agrees with that, and he's like, to him, it's a genuine reward rather than an exposition trap. The best games are the ones that use environmental storytelling, develop secondary narratives that can run alongside the main game rather than simply add detail to it. But In Grand Theft Auto, for example, Rockstar North builds multiple mysteries and hidden subplots into its landscapes. The Bigfoot myth, the alien spaceship, the Mount Chiliad conspiracies. These all provide curious players with a totally parallel narrative universe that allows for interpretation and discussion. It is living lore. Portal is another wonderful example. The story of Ratman and the whole Cake is a Lie meme exist entirely separate from the logic puzzle framework of the main game. Wasn't the Cake is a Lie like right at the end kind of thing? They don't explain it, but they do comment on it, they play with it, they indulge our curiosity rather than shoveling information at us. For the Deus Ex series, Warren Spector and his team came up with a brilliant way of making the game's background lore work. They based it on real life. I don't mind digging into the massive information provided in these games because I was learning about cool stuff like Mount Weather and Majestic 12. There is literally nothing I can do with my knowledge of the lucky old lady statue in Skyrim's city of Bravil. But what are you doing with the knowledge of Majestic 12 and conspiratorial silliness? Like, what? Or Bigfoot or aliens? Like, you're talking about entirely different into different settings. Here you have like modern or futuristic settings, and this is what bugs me about society nowadays, is that they're like, well, it's past, it's the history, and because things that are happening now have never happened before, it's useless, and there's nothing to take from historical aspects and things like that. What? We are all people, and last time I checked, if we were to pluck your sorry ass as an infant and throw it back in time, you would grow up to be just like those people, or you would have been killed off just like those people. Like, come on, how? Like, that to me is just ridiculous. Okay, yeah, you have this information about a thing that happened in a game. Okay, but to sit there and then in the same fucking paragraph talk about how it's this information about the Majestic 12 and all that. What the fuck? That's no, you have, that's just, what? Really? How about, like, would it be more interesting to make, like, myth stuff in because that's kind of, like, I've never played Elder Scrolls, but I'm imagining that there have to be myths and stories about, like, ancient monsters and stuff like that. That's the same fucking thing as Bigfoot. I'm sorry. Medusa is Bigfoot. That'd be a really frightening combination, too, a Medusa Bigfoot. But besides the point, that's, like, and this is why this article just kind of really derailed for me. Because, yeah, I agree, when you just try to, like, cover up things in the way of trying to make it really, really, really complex and convoluted, it's not, that doesn't make it deep, it just makes it a mess to kind of sift through. But to sit here and be like, it's greater with aliens and Bigfoot than it is talking about a statue in a game, because it's a statue in a game. It's like, huh? Like, what's the context of the statue? Does it have something to do? Does it explore, like, human qualities of any sort? Like, and then he also goes with Hidetaka Miyazaki and Fumito Ueda as masters of action-adventure lore building. In both Shadow of the Colossus and Dark Souls, the approach is minimalist and ambient. There are no lengthy tomes on history or genealogy to discover. Players must pick up the clues from architectural features, from the placement of items and enemies, from the tiniest scraps of information. So he wants basically a whole lot of gaps to become the story he wants it to be. And that is greedy. And I know I've rambled way on long about this, but this is kind of, this gets to me, because this is saying, because this goes into another tangent of how to me it feels like a lot of people who play games are very, very, it's the same thing with, like, music, where it becomes very personal. So when they play games, it becomes very personal, but it also becomes the consumerist greed of, well, it needs to be able to do what I want it to do, or what I want, and it's like, no, this is what people are making a game. Not always, of course, but people. Let's take it okay, for myself. I'm trying to make a game because I would like to make a game. I would like to make a game and to sit here and have somebody tell me straight up that it is much more important that they, because what lore does fucking Shadow of the Colossus have? Dark Souls I never played, so I can't really comment it on. But Shadow of the Colossus has greater lore building? What? What? No, you can't. You can't. You can't get shit out of just seeing a fucking building. It is a decrepit building. Okay, you can let your mind wander. You can imagine what the hell is going to happen, but you have no idea. You have none. You've got crazy Sky Voice talking to the dude, going, Roger, gotcha, go chase down the Colossi. That is it. What the fuck? Okay, you have a sky god who's telling you things, and once you do it, you'll totally bring her back to life, but he's tricking you because it's going to cause you to change and all this sort of stuff. And then you have these people from beyond on this bridge that come in, but there's no lore building. There's none. You have to put it together yourself, and that isn't good lore to me. That's not that. There's no depth to it because all the depth is coming from the player, which is fine if that's what you like to do. I don't. To me, that's just. And that's fine, but to me, that comes off as lazy, just because you look at all these other myths and stuff throughout history, and they go into good explanations and really interesting kind of concepts and ideas about stuff. That's what I think is a problem with writing, is because the writing to me has not been so good, and so you have people like this saying, well, because the writing isn't so good, or just because there's a lot of it, It's just because there's a lot of writing, it's bad instantly. So it's like they're taking the exact opposite of what their argument is. Instead of saying, well, their first problem is that they think volume equals depth, but in reality is that less volume equals depth, and it's like, no, I mean. I like gaps, and this is why this article in particular is kind of I'm with this person in liking gaps, but they mention things like Shadow of the Colossus, and I just kind of stop. What the dude? What? No, that's not good lore. That's at least to me, that's not good lore. But I've rambled on way too long about this one here. I do really want your guys' opinions on this, so let me know, because it's not like I'm saying that person's totally wrong, but it's it comes off as somebody who doesn't like to read. Which is fine. You don't have to like to read stuff. That's fine. Who doesn't like to read? So because they don't like to read, it immediately means that game lore is bad when you take something like Elder Scrolls. People who like to read are going to take the exact opposite approach to that. Look at something like, I know, bring this up, Lost Odyssey with the memory sequences. You have to read those. Johnny Millennium, Happy Console Gamer, does not like those things because you're just kind of sitting there reading. That's fine, but just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's bad. And that's where I feel that this article kind of goes, is that they kind of make some points, and then they make the very cherry-picked points with The Witcher, but then they don't, they make this other point with, Grand Theft Auto and also BioShock, but it's like, BioShock doesn't have BioShock doesn't have a damn book. And not only that, but their stuff is told you're getting the information orally. You're hearing it through audio, and it's just very poorly argued, I think, and then he makes up a personal antecedent about how he worked for a game, and he made this lore for this racing thing because they thought it was needed, and then they cut it out. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's a fucking racing game. Of course you don't need lore for that. It's subjective. It's what they're going for the people that they're aiming for with their game. Not that it's just bad because words. I am going to... We're going to listen to music. I don't believe this is almost an hour. We're going to listen to some music, and we'll be back with comments. Alright, after that lengthy diatribe, so welcome back. That was If Japan is the title for it, and yeah, it's good. It's very good. All right, so yeah, that lengthy diatribe aside, like I said, if comments on that, please, because I understand where they're coming from with it, with the whole it lets the player fill in the gaps, but to say that is inherently better because of that, just it really irks me, because it's like that's like saying, well, my opinions are better than yours because I'm right. Huh? Anywho, that's not what the section's about. The section's about comments. So let's get to these comments. Alright, first off here, and if I miss somebody's, do let me know, please. Just because of the staggered nature of them and whatnot, it kind of causes me to whiff on some of these, so I apologize. But let's see here. First off, Silver Mongoose had responded to me because of the audio thing. I haven't quite heard anybody else say anything about that, but I don't think the that won't come out until not tomorrow, but this week, episode 8th, or the 8th episode, about how the audio seems a little quiet. I think part of it's also because I'm not talking directly into it, but maybe that's a part of it. I'm also not the loudest of speakers. I just don't like talking. I mean, I can be loud if I want to, but I don't. I'm not really a loud kind of person. Goofy. I may be goofy, but I'm not a very loud person. We were kind of going back and forth about sound stuff, and he asked if I was using headphones when I do my editing, and because sometimes I go between your videos and others, Netflix or music, and the rest are all way louder. No need to change anything for me, just saying what I am experiencing. I do use headphones, and I put it at a sound when I'm editing that it becomes uncomfortable for me to hear it, is what I usually do. So it's about 50% on headphones gets it for me, and then I kind of it gets a bit too loud for me. But do let me know when this does come about. But for the last episode, I decided to, when I was doing the talking bits, bump up a few decibels. So see if that makes it a little bit better. If not, we'll kind of figure something out. Because at least then you can turn it down. But if you reach a point where it's at max volume, but it's still kind of hard to hear, then it becomes a little bit of a problem. But yeah, so Kid Koala, and that was on Rambling the Third, I believe. And then Kid Koala also put on Rambling Weekly 6th, because we were going about back and forth about Audible, Brian McMorn, Robert E. Howard, Conan the Barbarian. He's like, but he talks about just how he's a pretty quick reader, and then he kind of goes into, I think it's just because I think it just depends on what I'm reading, honestly. If I'm having a hard time getting into a book, I'm probably not going to read a whole lot of it, which makes a lot of sense. But if I get really into a book, I'm going to have it done in just a couple of days. Also, it's always good to remind yourself reading is supposed to be fun, not work. Bingo. And this is so, and it's just something with me and who I am, but there's times where I don't find fiction fun, and I'll end up reading a lot of historical stuff. I got Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War. I've got a book on Marcus Aurelius' life, India, a history. So a book detailing the history of India, as well as the rise of Rome by Plutarch, and the conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar. So I like a lot of those kind of books. So sometimes it's hard for me to kind of read some other stuff. Preferably I like a lot more of the older kind of ancient stuff. maybe not ancient, but the more classical stuff, I should say. So more modern or recent history, like even up into like the 1600s and stuff like that. I got a book on the War of the Roses that I'm having the damnedest time reading. It's just not really jiving with me. But totally. It should be fun, not work. Because if you're just doing it for work, it comes hard. And then we'll talk about different things. And a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. I mentioned it for some reason, but he responded with making that quote, which is like, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," which Oppenheimer quoted when talking about the atomic bomb and stuff. Pretty. Woo! And he's like, that's one badass quote. I'm not even sure if I've ever read that before, but I'm most definitely never going to forget it. It gave me goosebumps immediately after reading it. Yeah, like the context of it, and hearing Oppenheimer quote it in the video, like if just go look up Oppenheimer quoting, or like Oppenheimer talking about the atom bomb testing, or the nuclear bomb testing, and he mentions it, and it's creepy. You're like, whoo, that's some dark stuff. And yeah, and then because I like mythologies and stuff like that, the Bhagavad Gita is something I like reading as well. So yeah, all right. So now we're going to get into the Rambling Weekly. Actually, no, there's one more from Rambling Weekly the third. And that was also from Silver Mongoose, and he said, "I enjoy if I could read, I enjoy how you can laugh at yourself so easily." Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if it's like a coping mechanism, or if it's just I find myself to be a living, walking joke, or what. But I think probably what it is I'll say something. I think it's kind of comical to me, and then I laugh, but it's also a way for me to kind of think of something else to say, so it's not quite just a but I don't know, for some reason I like to I don't know, I just like to laugh. If you're not laugh enough for a day and cry enough for a day, you haven't done enough for the day, I guess. I don't know. I don't do a lot of crying, but I try to make up for it in laughter. All right, let's get into the comments here from Rambling Weekly 7, because it's going to be a really long episode. All right, so first off here we have Kid Koala for this one. Okay, got the full thing here. And he said, "I think you made a wise decision on waiting to getting a new computer. I wish I could read. I'm waiting on mine to crash before I get a new one." Yeah, like I did really want to get one, but in the same hand, I just can't afford anything really like that at the moment. And I need to kind of straighten out finances and everything before I even get into something like that. Right now the laptop can play. It can play music. I can go onto YouTube's. I can edit this stuff. That will have to do. I'm going to try again and make sure and see if I had everything turned off and try to do another recording of it, because I do need to do that Lufia 2 one. I've been sitting on it for a little while, and I do need to get some other videos outside of just Rambling Weekly and Power on the channel again. But it was one of the, I do get a bit compulsive and stuff, but if I can weather the storm when it comes to that, usually cooler heads prevail, sort of thing. So yeah, for sticking it out. I mean, this isn't that bad. It's just not. It was never meant to do a whole bunch of stuff, and what I initially bought it for to be able to do, it has been doing that. So I shouldn't really go beyond that. So. And then the second part here is, I'm with you. Nothing in movies or video games really scare me, but there was one movie that did kind of gross me out pretty bad, and that was Necromantic, 1987, a movie about necrophilia. They make it seem
They make it seem completely normal. That's not. That's me just completely brain farting each time I'm trying to read. So sorry. And by the end of it, I'm not gonna lie. It did have me thinking there really are people who are attracted to rotting corpses, which is a pretty scary idea to wrap your head around. Yeah, that's kind of gross. I Yeah, but grossing me out doesn't really scare me, and I don't know if it's just because of like myths and stuff like that. It doesn't. I guess destruction makes me fear more than anything else. Like that sort of thing is just kind of gross, and you're like, yeah, but I don't know. Take for example Oedipus. To me, that's really gross. I mean, Oedipus is cast away because his father gets this idea and stuff that he's told that his son will usurp him and become a king and whatnot, and like kill him and all this sort of stuff. And so they're like, yeah, nope, go send him to die, and they don't. It's a common trope in kind of ancient stories is that they have this king or this prince be thrown out of its kingdom. Look at Zeus. He's taken from his father and then sent to Earth so he doesn't get swallowed. It's a very common theme, which is pretty interesting. But he grows up, and on the road he encounters his father, but he doesn't know it's his father. And I'm totally paraphrasing the stories, and he ends up killing him, and in doing so, they lose their king. The town loses their. I think it's Delphi. No, it's not Delphi. Thebes. I think it's Thebes. He loses his. Thebes loses their ruler, and then is attacked by the Sphinx. The Sphinx monsters attacking him, and Oedipus comes upon him. I think he doesn't just come upon him like, hey, what the heck? But he picks himself and be like, I'll take care of it. And then that's where the mystery of the Sphinx. I think there's two riddles. The one I remember is the what has 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs at night. And there's another one as well. But the answer for all you who happen to ever encounter the Sphinx, it's man. He solves the riddle of the Sphinx. Sphinx goes away, and then he becomes the leader. I think I want to say it's Thebes. I could be wrong, but I'll stick with Thebes. He becomes the ruler of Thebes, and he ends up marrying his mother, and that to me is really gross. But this also happens, and there's different Greek and just other mythologies and stuff where it's the sexes are reversed, so it's the daughter bedding her father. There's a couple different stories of it too, and it's just kind of like that. To me is really like incestuous kind of stuff. That's pretty gross to me. So even though you push into necrophilia and that's really gross, I always think of just people who stick things into sheep or get fucked by horses and stuff, like bestiality. Like you're kind of like, that's I'm at this point, I'm not surprised. Like it's still gross, it's still really gross, but you're like, yeah, I'm really not surprised. But but yeah, to me that's not really, I guess that's not as a scary concept. I'm just kind of like, yes, that's pretty gross. And then, so I responded to that, and he responded with, for his laptop, he's like, I had mine for about 7 or so years. It can be pretty slow at times, but it gets the job done. There you go. That's usually better than mine. Mine don't usually end up lasting that long. For some reason, they just kind of go kaput. Let's see. And he responded with, yeah, I wouldn't really recommend anyone to watch the movie. It's pretty fucking gross. It's just the only movie I could think of that messes with me. Okay, so that would be a good way to kind of describe that. So it's not really like a kind of creeping you out in any way. And I know you said gross before, but it messes with you. So, okay. Also, word to the wise, if a girl ever shows you necromantic on your first date, you should probably never talk to her again, especially if she laughs through the whole fucking movie. That sounds like that actually happened to you. And I am kind of curious to know how that ended up. But you don't have to go into personal details. But that really sounds like what's that quote? A fool learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Not to say that you're a fool or anything, Kid Koala, but I totally get what you mean on that sort of thing. That's I will gladly take that information and put it to use. And I mentioned that I was reading Conan. He convinced me to kind of shift from Ovid and read that. I'm liking it. I'm not too far into it. I'm only about 30 to 40 pages in. I really haven't. I've been sidetracked by other things and just haven't been able to get into it. Like I said earlier, hours ago, I was I'm got into doing a bit more writing recently, and that's kind of taken more of my time. And he put, also, I really should have mentioned this before, but I totally forgot. I enjoyed horror as a media. I just don't find it to be too scary. Well, there we go. My favorite horror game is probably Resident Evil 1 remake for the GameCube or Silent Hill 3 on the PS2. And for movies, I guess The Shining. I like the remake for Resident Evil. Personally, I side more in Silent Hill 1. I that's more my jam. Silent Hill 2, I liked it, but I'm actually really surprised to hear that it's really liked by people. And I never played Silent Hill 3. I've heard the first 4 games are pretty darn good, and then it just kind of goes off kilter a bit. But I've never played 3, so I guess I should remedy that somehow. But yes, thank you for the comments, Kid Koala. I'm looking forward to what you have to say about the girl laughing through necromantic, or if you're just making that up. But yeah. Next up here we got one from BK McGlynn, and he's like, thanks for commenting on my posts. I can be quite the rambler at times, especially when it comes to game music. Well, if you've been listening to this, you realize how much of a rambler I am. But yeah, that game music can totally just talk eons about. But there's so much VGM I like, so I usually stuff a lot of music I like down someone's throat and can't seem to stop with all the YouTube links and such. And then he put I don't quite understand what that means. SOWWY. I don't know if that was like an autocorrect sort of thing. What does that mean? Or is like, so yeah, maybe that's what it's trying to say. I don't know. Enlighten me. I am curious to know if that's like some sort of different kind of word language. Oh, my brain. I've fried my brain today. But video game music, I love talking about. I haven't checked it out. I'm a bastard. I've not checked out that stuff yet. But each time I read your comments, I was like, oh, and that's kind of how my brain kind of works, is that I compartmentalize like everything. So when kind of talking about things, I may not remember something or kind of get shelved, and then I remember the moment that it's like, oh, hey, that sort of thing. I'm making a note now. Listen to music. Okay. Alright, then he puts, I love anything horror, movies, games, TV, and music. Movie scores like Christopher Young's Hellraiser or Akira Yamaoka's Okay. Music / scary noise in Silent Hill. Books is something I want to delve deeper into, but at this time in my life, it isn't something I have patience for. I have the patience for. I'm a slow reader, and like with a lot of games, I usually sample something and seem to be distracted by the next new thing. Side note, I sample a lot of games, but I finish a lot of them as well. Some just can't hold my attention, or I finish them months or years later. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's just because there's so much out there. It's hard to. It can be very hard to stick to just one thing and just play through that. Like I personally, when it comes to game stuff, there's like a console game I'll play and a handheld game I'll play, and that's about it. I usually don't kind of drift too far from that. And that's really, like, movies. I don't really watch a lot of movies. I'm more of and this is why I brought up that reference. I'm more of like the spaghetti western kind of guy. I like that stuff a bit more, so that's why I brought up that reference with tension and stuff like that. Because it's the only thing in movies that I could kind of equate to that sort of thing that I actually liked. Books, I've already mentioned earlier with that Kid Koala's comment there about I read just a bunch of different stuff. So, yeah. But I totally get you, because there's so much out there that you're kind of... You just got to focus on one thing and just be like, block out all the noise going, la 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 la. I'm reading, or, I'm playing. It can be tough. Let's see here. Next he put, but going back to horror, first of all, horror doesn't scare me. Ever. But I can feel a slight feeling of unease or tension if the film or game is well done. The first four The first four Silent Hill games made me feel strange and agitated. The manner in which Team Silent portrayed horror with its story, images, and sounds really did a number on me back then. Some movies can also have this effect on me. Another good example is the French horror movie Martyrs. Besides the fact that it is a very brutal movie with absolutely awful torture scenes, it does much more than that. It might sound like movies such as Hostel, but it is much more clever story, however awful and sick it may be. The first two Hellraiser movies also had this effect on me, but I know them too well now. And I think I probably said this in the comment there, but I have no really too much of an idea about Hostel nor Martyrs. I think I might have heard Pete Dorr mention them in All Gen Gamers at one point. I can, and maybe this is, right. I could read really brutal things and be okay with it. And I think I mentioned, like, with The Last of Us, they have that brutal, like, the death scenes of getting bit in the neck and pulling back veins and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't bother me, but it's like when it fixates on it and it just kind of sits there and you're like, like, I know, and it's kind of weird to think about, like, with ancient battles and stuff like that, where people would walk the battlefield afterwards and see all of that kind of mangled stuff, and that's a bit of a voyeuristic, and I wonder if it's something that's kind of passed down to us, or it's a bit of a voyeuristic kind of a vibe. I also kind of think of, like, pornography in that same kind of way, because it wasn't like you would have a bunch of private rooms to where you could just kind of do your thing and be done. You're kind of with other people, and so other people kind of looked and they were excited, they enjoyed it. It's kind of creepy. But I kind of wonder, if that sort of thing, that interest, or the gene that might have piqued interest in was passed down, and for some people that's what they liked. I have no idea. For whatever reason, it just doesn't like bother me. I'm just kind of like take the Iliad. It's Homer's depiction of the war going on at the time is pretty graphic. You got spears going through people's eye holes, making squishy kibbles and bits out of the brains, and all that kind of. It's very graphic at times, and it doesn't bother me. Like, I'll envision it and stuff. I remember in high school I would actually write kind of like that too, without really being aware of it because at the time I had never read it. But I can remember one scene in particular that I had written for a creative writing class in high school where person's being chased, they turn around, unleash a shot with their bow, and the bolt goes through the person's head, and then it sticks to the tree behind them, and there's a string of blood and brain matter going from the bow to the crumpled up body that's laying there. I'm sorry if that kind of threw people off, but like I don't know, it just doesn't really kind of. I don't like. I think I probably could watch it by myself. I just don't like watching it with other people. Partially because then people are like, where the fuck, huh? You know, but also just because I don't like to watch or play things with other people around a lot of the times because a lot of times it turns into Mystery Science Theater, and that aggravates me more than anything. But yeah. And then he wraps up with, you do have to search really hard before you'll find a good horror movie. Of all the horror movies I've watched, most of them are just rehashes of other horror movies or are just plain boring. But once in a blue moon, you'll find a horror movie that's either really well done or one that is actually quite original. Last one I can think of is It Follows. I remember seeing trailers for it. It didn't really interest me. I was like, oh, okay. That was really about it. But also, I mean, movies is a harder thing for me to really get into because I'm not a big movie person. So I'm like, okay, whatever. The one I can kind of think of that I didn't have any interest in it, and I read it and I just thought it sounded really dumb was, I think, Cabin in the Woods or something. It sounded really dumb to me from reading it, and I know that's unfair to read a plot synopsis or like the story and then see how it unfolds with the actual movie, but it sounded really dumb to me, and I'm like, this is where we're at. So, but that's at least good that there's because It Follows isn't that old of a movie, maybe a couple years, so it's at least good that they still come up with fresh stuff nowadays. So, and then Butterbirds, he had 2 comments, and I'm going to read them. He responded, "Oh, I love the horror genre. However, I think for me there's a particular aspect in the genre I can't get anywhere else except video games, and that's atmosphere. Cue creepy Akira Yamaoka music." See, I didn't even know who the hell that was. Like, it's good that people know this sort of stuff because I'm really terrible at that. Like, I'm really terrible at knowing. And I know a couple of people's, like Ryuji Sasai. He did the stuff for Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, but he also did Rudra no Hiho, as well as some of the music for Final Fantasy Legends. But I would never have been able to tell you who did Silent Hill's music, not in a million years, if I did not have the power of the internet or people saying this sort of thing. It's probably not going to stick in my head. It'll probably go back out, but seeing it a bit more, it really helps. Silent Hill 2 has one of the best atmospheres in the genre, that feeling of loneliness and claustrophobia. My kind of holiday resort. P2 also captured an atmosphere that the latest Silent Hill games are missing. Anyway, I wish there was a movie that could make me feel that atmosphere, but I think that might only work for an interactive medium. I don't know. That's true. That's something. That's something that's really you have to take into consideration for that sort of thing. I didn't quite. I've got to play Silent Hill 2 again because and this, of course, subjectivity and all that sort of thing. It surprises me. The same thing with like the Mega Man Legends love that I hear from some people. That surprises me still because everybody that I knew didn't give a rat's ass for it. Everybody was like, whoa, this looks really shitty. Like that and Silent Hill 2, people were kind of like, it wasn't so bad. You know, Pyramid Head dude was pretty creepy, and that was it. And I think I might have mentioned before, when I played it during the day with people making comments. My dad's really bad about this, and it turns me off from playing games whenever he's around, just because it's like, I'm not here to listen to your comments, which, by the way, would actually be pretty funny, like like videos and stuff of having him comment when my brother's playing like online stuff. It's pretty funny, but in the same hand, when I'm trying to be focused on something, it's not even just distracting, it's more annoying. So like what is it, Hardcore Henry is a movie that just came out that does like the GoPro that's kind of blending first person shooter with movie and stuff like that. Well, maybe they might kind of go that way. And it's not quite the same, but who knows? And then he also added another comment here that said, I love me some monsters crawling out of the fog and crawl right past me doing nothing. I wish Hollywood would use the audience's imagination to their advantage, but I guess in their minds, imagination doesn't make money in horror. I don't know what I'm saying now, and I'm going to go to bed. Good night, good morning, and good afternoon to you, sir. Hope you have a good day or night. Thank you. I'm having a good day, other than I'm losing my voice now because I've been rambling on so damn long. But I agree. I really think it's something to do with taking away that primordial fear that we feel of the unknown. That's why like something like Aliens kind of creep me out. Not the movie, the second movie, Aliens, the movie kind of sucked because you're just like, they just start wailing on them. Alien, the first movie, is creepy as fuck, and that's because it's only once it's been embraced by the vacuum of space is it gone. And this is where like having a gap in knowledge it works to the benefit for a horror genre, where if you're trying to establish lore, I don't like there's certain things where it does and doesn't work. Case in point, Kid Koala with the Conan the Barbarian, that opening where it's talking about the Hyborian Age and everything. I really like that. Like, it doesn't go into hyper detail, but it's like 20, 30, well, not 30, but it's like 20 pages of the detail of the area to set up everything. It's great. It's great. It's wonderful. Loved it. But, yeah, they just don't, the imaginations, that's why I have a hard time with movies and television and that sort of thing when it comes to that type of entertainment, is because you're using your eyeballs. And eyeballs don't really, unless you're like hallucinating, they really don't help push the imagination. And interactivity helps in that regard, because then it makes you more immersed. Whereas with the TV and the screen and stuff, there's this divide, and yeah. So yes, I hope you are having a good night, a good morning, or a good afternoon. Actually, and a good afternoon. Just make sure you have a good day. Good sir. Yeah, so that's it for the comment section. So this is going to be a really long episode. We're going to go into the quotes and then wrap this beast up into one fine day. All right, be back.
All right. That there was what was that song? I am a fool. That was Run Wild. I love that song. I also love putting it in RPG Maker and speeding it up by like 1.5 or 2. It's pretty darn good that way too. Yeah. So, woohoo! For the quote here today, we're actually going to take a page from Aesop's Fables. And if you don't know what Aesop's Fables are, they are a collection of little moral stories and stuff like that. Very short. The book version that I have is about 234 pages, and there's like 289 stories. And some of it's interesting because the morals make no sense. Whether it's because we're missing pieces of it or what. Or like, hey, there's some that you read that you're just kind of like, huh. Okay. One in particular that comes to mind is the moon asking its mother for a dress, and the mother I think it's the mother, and the mother's like, I can't because there's no proper size for you because you're this, you're that, you're that. And I kind of wonder what the moral is that they're going for it, whether it's like I guess for me, I would think of it as being, oh, well, you're trying too hard to be all these different things. Just be yourself so you can be dressed. I don't know. It's fucking Aesop's Fables. If you've not read them, I highly recommend them. They're great stuff. And we're going to go with one called The Mischievous Dog. Why did I say mischievous? Mischievous. It's the mischievous. Mischievous. No, it's the mischievous. The mischievous dog. Alright, here we go. There was once a dog who used to snap at people and bite them without any provocation, and who was a great nuisance to everyone who came to his master's house. So his master fastened a bell around his neck to warn people of his presence. The dog was very proud of the bell, and strutted about, tinkling it with immense satisfaction. But an old dog came up to him and said, "The fewer airs you give yourself, the better, my friend. You don't think, do you, that your bell was given you as a reward of merit? On the contrary, it is a badge of disgrace." Now, this is a I'm kind of curious. What do you guys think of what the moral is of that little story there? Because kind of like, what the hell does a dog getting a bell have to do? Basically, that notoriety is often mistaken for fame. And yeah, and that happens a lot, and that's so people who see all this fame all about and everything, they don't really take the time to put the connection to a lot of it being due to notoriety. Oops. Oopses. Got to do's the poopses. That was dumb. But yeah, so it's kind of like you think, oh well, because I'm known for something, well, I'm kind of famous. That's not really a good thing. Yay! But I wanted to bridge into Aesop's Fables. I'll probably start digging through a couple of these more, just because I really like them. I mean, this is where boasters brag most when they cannot be detected. Evil wishes like fowls come home to roost. Honesty is the best policy. Pride comes before a fall. Slow and steady wins the race. That's all from Aesop's Fables, folks. So, yeah. So, thank you for listening to this rather lengthy edition of Rambling Weekly 9th. I am now going to go to sleep forever.
Take at least a little bit of a break from chit-chatting, because now my throat's probably like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why? So, unfortunately with the music, I don't have another song by this person. I thought I had more music by him, but I am a fool. I have Angry, but you guys have heard Angry. So we're going to kind of shift to SSH, a different SSH song. This is also accompanied with Sword of Justice, or SOJ. And it's probably, of the Dojin music and stuff that I like, it's one of those like top 10. I love listening to this song. And that is Wonders in the Wilderness. And it is it's like a song in, not, I don't want to say in memory of, but with respect to Metal Saga, I think is what it going for. With respect Knuckles to Metal Saga. So yeah, it's pretty awesome song. So, thanks for listening. Enjoy your week, your weekend, your weekday, weeknight, week everything. Yeah, I'll catch you next week for another Rambling Weekly. Until then.